Happy Election Day, Waterloo Region. It is the 28th of April, 2025. Election Day across Canada. Polls have just opened in Waterloo Region. If you're not doing anything else at the moment, turn off your radio and go vote. I'm Bob Jonkman, the producer of Meet the Candidate that you've been hearing at this hour for the last 5 weeks, for the last 3 weeks or so. It's been a 5-week campaign. We've had the various candidates coming in from different parties, from different ridings across Waterloo Region, and I want to offer to you some of my opinions on the proceedings of that. First of all, I'd like to start off by thanking all the candidates who came into the studio. We had 31 candidates in Waterloo Region. We had about 16 of them come in. A few declined, some because of job obligations that they couldn't come in because they still have a day job to attend to. Others couldn't come in because of illness, and some declined because they said they were too busy. Several candidates did not respond at all to my invitation to come in, and that I find a little bit surprising. Meet the Candidate was 25 minutes of free airtime on the radio. It's community radio. We don't have a wide reach. We have about a 15-kilometer radius of transmission out of Waterloo. But the audience that we attract as a community radio station tends to be younger people, people who are in school, people who are in university, some first-time voters, no doubt, amongst them, as well as older people who tend to vote as well. So the community radio audience is an important segment of the media reach that doesn't tend to get addressed by mainstream media. We're a separate audience from that. And so as a candidate, I would think that it would be important to reach out to that audience. And by completely ignoring that entire segment, and in some cases, some candidates have not appeared on any public media at all, those candidates are just not getting their word out there. I have no idea how people manage to do make an intelligent vote, make a vote based on the issues that are extant in Canada today, the policies that the different parties have, what the individual candidates bring to a particular riding. If those candidates don't come out and tell people what their platform is, what the party's position is, what their own position is, what they intend to do for Waterloo Region. So, that opportunity was provided by Radio Waterloo over the course of about 3 weeks. If you want to catch up on some of those free format speeches that the candidates made, you can see them at radiowaterloo.ca/MTC. They're all online, they're all on YouTube, and you can peruse those at your leisure, possibly before you cast your vote. Definitely you can do so after you've cast your vote already. Polls are open. It's just past 9:30 now, 9:36 CKMS time. And today we'll be doing a bit of election coverage this morning, and then we'll jump into our 3 or 4, maybe 6-hour election coverage starting at 8 p.m. tonight. Regular programming has been preempted. Thank you very much to those show hosts that have given up their time slots. That's Carlo Berkovich for So Old It's New, Mason Tickle, who does the Klausterfokken show, and then just after midnight, it's Masiak Gudrimovich, who does the Late Night Vibe show. They've all kindly given up their time slots so that we can bring you up-to-date national election coverage through the NCRA. We'll be doing that starting at 8 p.m. We'll have some people in the studio, some analysts, to talk about the campaign, to talk about the progress of the election. We'll be relying on the Elections Canada website to provide the results for Waterloo Region. And a lot of the program tonight will be from the NCRA, nationwide, coming to you out of Ottawa, out of British Columbia as well. We'll have hosts on both coasts. There's a tongue twister. With the election taking place early, the election was scheduled to take place in October. We have a set election date to take place 4 years in October. 4 years after the previous election, every October. The election was called early, and I think that may have been because the Liberal government, the Liberal Party, elected a new leader, Mark Carney, and took advantage of their quick boost in the polls to call an election early with the hopes of electing a majority of the seats in Parliament as they did in 2015. There are issues in Canada that have not been particularly well addressed in the past, notably that of our major trading partner in the South, the United States of America. They have essentially declared a tariff war on Canada. Canada has retaliated by imposing their own tariffs on U.S. products, none of which does the Canadian citizens any good. Tariffs just mean increased cost for all the consumers. So there must have been better ways to deal with the imposed tariffs from the U.S. Mark Carney, an economist of some renown, he was the Bank of Canada governor in Canada for a number of years before moving to England and becoming the Bank of England governor. So that he has definite bona fides for being an economist, for knowing his economics. But I think that comes at the expense of other issues that Canada is facing, notably climate change. One of the first things that Mark Carney did was to abandon the carbon fee and dividend, commonly called the carbon tax, where Canadians were receiving a rebate of several $100s several times a year for the money that was collected at various sources for fossil fuel sales, the gas pumps, home heating, any sort of imports that came into the country. Most Canadians, most citizens, did not pay out in this carbon fee, the carbon tax, nearly the amount that they would receive as the rebate. And by cancelling the carbon tax, it turns out that Canadians are less well off than they used to be, because this rebate money is no longer coming in. There is still a carbon tax on corporations. There is still a corporate carbon fee. But those carbon fees are not going out to the consumers any longer. Instead, that is now money that's flowing into the government coffers, to be spent on things that aren't necessarily in favor of the climate either. Mark Carney has provided his opinion on pipelines, on the gas extraction in the west of Canada. He seems to be in favor of it all. This is not an environmentally friendly policy to take. So it doesn't look like there is a great deal of difference between the party campaign policies of the Liberals compared to the campaign policies of the Conservatives. The main Conservative platform was Axe the Tax, that being the carbon fee, the carbon tax that Mark Carney immediately slashed as well. Many of the other policies that the Conservatives have had are now adopted by the Liberals. So is there a difference? I don't know. We'll see when the election is done, when one party or the other has returned to the House of Commons, to the House of Parliament, and starts governing for us. When that happens, we'll see whether or not the promises that they've made will be fulfilled and what the result is for the citizens of Canada. It seems that the other parties, notably the NDP, the New Democratic Parties, and the Green Party of Canada, both of which have seats in the House of Commons, aren't doing nearly as well in this election based on the polls that I've been seeing. I'm not a big believer in polls. I think the only poll that counts is the election that is taking place right now. And the opinions that were expressed to the polling people were few and far between. Samples of a few hundred people, maybe a few thousand people here and there. There is no obligation on people responding to polls to say what they actually will be doing in the way of voting. So you can't really count on the accuracy of the votes, both from the truth of the answers that people are providing, as well as the small sample that's not necessarily representative across the country. So I'm not a big believer in polls, except for the one poll that counts, the election that's taking place today. But the polls have indicated that the Liberals have increased in popularity, the Conservatives have decreased a little bit in popularity, so they're close enough to each other at this point that the margin of error probably exceeds the difference between their polling numbers. On the other hand, the popularity for the New Democratic Party has plummeted. I believe that they're riding at about 8% at the moment, as has that for the Green Party of Canada. The Green Party of Canada was polling at around 5%, but is only polling at around 2% at this point. Something that really struck me as retrograde action by the Green Party was that they did not run candidates in every riding in Canada. There's 343 electoral districts in Canada. So we're actually having 343 separate elections across Canada. The Green Party seems to have run candidates in slightly more than 200 of those. That has bitten them once already, in that the consortium that determines which parties get to appear on the national debates ruled that the Green Party did not run sufficient candidates in order to qualify to be on the debates. The Green Party is protesting that. I believe they've actually launched a court case to fight that. I'm not quite sure what resolution they hope to get out of that. But I believe they shot themselves in the foot by not having candidates in every riding. Here in Waterloo Region, Kitchener-Conestoga did not have a Green candidate, although that Green candidate, Tessa Smith, is still listed, or was still listed, on the Green Party candidate's website when I last looked a day or so ago. It's misleading. I'm not sure why. It denies the voters of Kitchener-Conestoga their choice of voting for the party that they would like to vote for. I am absolutely certain that there were perfectly competent people in Kitchener-Conestoga who would have been willing to run as a candidate in that riding, even just as a paper candidate, a candidate who only appears on the ballot but does not do any active campaigning, possibly appearing on the radio, possibly appearing in some of the debates, the Board of Trade debate, for example. A paper candidate is not allowed to have any campaign expenses. And I know people who had volunteered to the Green Party to be a paper candidate. So there's no excuse for the Green Party not running a candidate in the Kitchener-Conestoga riding. I feel hard done by. I'm a former Green Party candidate myself. This election, I cannot vote for the party that I believe would do the best job for Kitchener-Conestoga. This is my opinion, of course, that other people who have voted who will be voting in Kitchener-Conestoga, or may have voted in the advance polls already, are likely to vote for the Liberals, the Conservatives, the New Democratic Party, or the People's Party of Canada candidate, who is, I hear, polling higher than the NDP candidate in Kitchener-Conestoga. But like I say, I'm not a big believer in polls. One of the biggest issues that has been raised, and has been raised time and time again in elections going back 10 years or more, is the issue of strategic voting. Because we have 343 separate elections taking place across Canada, we can only elect one candidate in each electoral district, in each riding. And that means that we have to make a choice. The choice that we should be making, I believe, is to elect or to vote for the candidate who will best represent you. Don't vote for the party. You certainly can't vote for the party leader unless that party leader happens to be the candidate in your riding, and we don't have that anywhere here in Waterloo Region. Vote for the candidate who will best represent you, because that is your only connection to the government when the election is complete, when the election is done. If you make a strategic vote, an insincere vote, a false vote, voting for a candidate that you believe will defeat a particular party, and not voting for the party that you believe will best represent you, you are voting for a candidate who will not best represent you. You will never get what you want in the way of an election outcome if you don't vote for the things that you do want. Strategic voting is not the way to get that. If strategic voting was an effective strategy, then we wouldn't have to do that time and time again. But since I've been paying close attention to politics for the last 15 years or more, there have been campaigns for strategic voting every single election, both at the provincial level and at the federal level. There's been vote swapping ideas where you pledge to vote for a candidate that represents a party based on the choice of somebody in an other riding who will vote for the candidate of a party that you would yourself choose. So you're voting for the party that you don't want in your election because that's the candidate that somebody wanted in a different riding, and vice versa, in order to elect a particular party into to form the government. But you're not choosing the candidate who will best represent you. And I'm not convinced at all that the parties will best represent you if you don't have a voice that directly represents you in your riding. The other problem then is, of course, that with first past the post, we get a false majority government very, very frequently. Because it's not the percentage of people who vote for a candidate that determines which candidate gets elected. It is a simple plurality. Whoever gets the most votes wins, even if that plurality, the percentage of votes, is far, far less than 50%. So in the case where you've got four parties, you could elect a candidate with as little as 30 or 40% of the votes. And when that gets repeated in riding after riding after riding, then you tend to elect a majority of candidates to the House of Commons based on a minority of the votes that were actually cast for that party. That's no way to run an electoral system. While I believe that the electoral system in Canada has integrity, Elections Canada does a very, very fine job of managing the election. I don't believe that the way that the votes are counted are a good reflection of what Canada actually wants, what Canadian citizens actually want as their government. A proportional representation system would be far, far better. In a place like Waterloo Region, where we have 5 different ridings, 5 different electoral districts, it makes an ideal setting to have a large region-wide electoral district with 5 candidates, 5 representatives that get voted on by all citizens in the region. So you're no longer casting a ballot to elect one candidate, you're casting a ballot to elect 5 candidates. And now you can rank those candidates on a ranked ballot, and the outcome tends to be proportional. This is called a single transferable vote, where you rank your candidates from most desirable to least desirable. And it turns out that even in a small selection of 5 candidates that we would see in Waterloo Region, you tend to get some proportionality. This past election, we got 5, in the 5 ridings, we had 4 Liberal candidates elected and 1 Green candidate elected. But that doesn't reflect how the voters voted. There were lots of votes cast for the Conservatives. There were lots of votes cast for the NDP as well. Yet those parties are not represented at all in Waterloo Region. By having a single transferable vote with 5 candidates in the entire region, we would probably end up with 1 or 2 Liberal candidates, 1 or 2 Conservative candidates, and very likely at least 1 NDP candidate and at least 1 Green candidate being elected into the region. And that means that when you have an issue that is best addressed by a particular candidate, say an environmental issue, you may want to go to the Green Party candidate in your riding. If you have a labor issue, you may want to go to your NDP candidate. An immigration issue, you may want to go to the candidate from the Liberal Party, and so on. It gives you far more choice. So that is my pitch for proportional representation and electoral reform, specifically here in Waterloo Region, but this would certainly work Canada-wide. Some people who have done analysis on the allocation of seats say that the best allocation of ridings is 10 to 11 candidates in a single electoral district. That tends to work quite well in urban districts where the population is somewhat denser. So you can have 11 candidates all running, or 11 position, 11 members of parliament, all in a single, fairly small geographic area in an urban setting. But in a rural setting, such as we have here in Kitchener-Conestoga and the northern part of Canada and very much of the western provinces as well, that doesn't work out so well. 11 ridings all put together forms a vast swath of the country, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the individual districts that may have different requirements in their demands on their federal government, that those different demands for the different geographic areas get addressed. In Northern Ontario, for example, we may have issues with mining. We have issues with fresh water for the first peoples in the northern parts of Ontario. Haven't had clean water in decades. That's an issue that doesn't necessarily appear in southern Ontario, and so having a very large swath of Northern Ontario all lumped together doesn't necessarily mean that individual issues get addressed or get addressed well. So in rural areas, having 3-4 candidates, maybe as many as 5 electoral districts put together to form a multi-member riding is probably a better choice. Should probably end up going to the website for Fair Vote Canada, fairvote.ca, who has a lot of information about different electoral methods, such as single transferable vote, mixed member proportional, all the technical details, but in my opinion it doesn't really make that much difference which proportional system you choose. As long as you have a proportional system, you'll get proportionality in the outcome of the election. All right, Election Day, polls are open, go out and vote. If you have not yet cast your vote, if you're registered to vote, bring your voter card if you've got it. If you haven't got your voter card, bring a couple of pieces of ID, one piece of government-issued ID and one piece of ID that has your name on it. If you are not registered to vote, bring that same type of ID, go to your polling station, and then you can register to vote right at the polling station. If the lines aren't too long, you should be able to get registered and cast your ballot in maybe 5 or 10 minutes of time. I don't know how busy the polls are this morning. We'll have a look at the news in a little bit and then let you know later on tonight how polling has taken place. We'll be starting our election coverage at 8 p.m. tonight. The polls don't close until 9:30 p.m. So we may not have any results to give to you for the first 90 minutes of our election coverage, but we'll have some analysts in the studio who can talk about campaign strategies and possibly some of the electoral results as they come out of the East Coast, where polls will be closing earlier than our local time of 9:30 p.m. If you are voting and you have to work all day, remember that employers are required to give you 3 hours of consecutive time to vote, which means that if you have no other chance to vote today, you should be able to leave work at 6:30 p.m. tonight in order to have 3 hours to vote before the polls close at 9:30. You don't necessarily get paid for for that time off, but employers are required to give you 3 consecutive hours in which to cast your ballot. When you do go out to the polls, don't wear anything that has identifiable campaign materials on. No party T-shirts, no buttons, no fancy hats that have party logos on them. Those things aren't allowed in polling stations. So wear something nice and neutral, possibly a nice gray shirt. That will do the trick. I'm going to take a quick break here. We'll be back to summarize in just a minute or two, and then we'll be back later tonight to do election coverage at 8 p.m. My name is Bob Jonkman. This is Meet the Candidate, giving some campaign analysis today.
must have been hard, sad and alone. And it won't matter after all. I know you're sorry now. All that you built was shattered.
Listening to Leather Rose. This is called Hurt by the Words. You've been listening to Meet the Candidate. My name is Bob Jonkman. The opinions that I've expressed today are not necessarily those of the Radio Waterloo Board of Directors, volunteers, sponsors, or advertisers, just the opinions on campaigns that I myself expressed. We'll be back later tonight at 8 p.m. to do some election coverage. This is brought to you by the National Campus and Community Radio Association of Canada, who have put together an election team across the country. There'll be an East Coast host and a West Coast host. We'll have our own analysts in studio, welcoming PJ Smith and Mason Tickle to do our election reporting for you. We'll see you tonight. Have a good election. Go out and vote.